Hello. Hi. You already know. What's up? I think we're almost done with this game, but it feels like it has gone on for an eternity, so I'm trying to just speed through this as best as I can. I'm enjoying it, but I want it to be over, you know what I'm saying? So, here we go. Errands. From the moment you woke up, you knew that today was going to be busier than usual. There was a list of errands that needed to be finished before the day was done. First up was visiting one of the biggest farmers markets in the area. It was only open 2 weekends a month during certain parts of the year. It was rare that you and your family were able to attend, so your moms liked to make the most out of every minute of it. And you realized it was not just them feeling that way when you heard a whistle from your left side. Wow, this is a swanky show. Vegetables have never seemed so highbrow. Seriously, they don't mess around with their products. Isn't it exciting? Liz crossed her arms. You could tell she was amused. We couldn't have picked a more perfect trip. It's been too long since we've had a true family outing. Her teasing tone said more than she actually did. Your next-door neighbors had joined you this day, and that's what made it a true family outing. The three parents laughed approvingly. Out of the corner of your eye, you caught Cove looking at you sympathetically. Some things never changed, and some jokes never died. You'd long accepted that. Excited. Thought this trip might be fun. It might be fun, you know. You smiled, trying to imagine how many stalls were set up. You were curious what hidden gems were waiting for you to discover among them. I love farmers markets, so this is great. Well, I'm ready to get started. I've got plenty of dishes in mind that I could use ingredients for. Before your moms responded to that, they glanced at each other and smiled. Yes, that's a very good idea, Cliff. This place is much larger than it seems. It's difficult to visit each part in a single day. I'm sure we can make a decent dent together at least. Actually, since there are so many of us this time, we could take different sides of the market. Divide and conquer, eh? That sounds brilliant. Everyone watched your moms unsurprised. Or, surprised. No one had considered that an option, but your mom flashed the group a dazzling smile, continuing with the thought. Though it's a little unfair that there are 4 last family members and only 2 Holdens here, so I'll go with you boys to even out the odds. Okay. That's fine with me. Cliff scratched the back of his neck and slowly met Cove's stare. They both seemed unconvinced, but weren't sure what to say about it. Don't worry, we'll be apart for only a few hours, and then we'll have something to talk about at the end of it. Father and son ultimately nodded. This wasn't an argument they were going to win. Alright. I don't get the point, but I also don't mind spending the first part of the trip with Jamie and Ma. Ma clapped her hands together at that. Wonderful! Are the teams ready to go? Yeah, let's go. Delighted, Ma hooked an arm around you in a little side hug. You grinned. Thank you, Jamie. Taking the lead, Mom walked towards Cove and Cliff, who were still eyeing her confusedly. Come on, boys, we're heading out. Sure. Okay. Cove looked at you softly and found himself pulled forward, stopping in front of you. His expression flickered for a moment, hesitant. Bye. Bye. Cove lightly took one of your hands in his and gave it a small squeeze. He reached forward with the other arm to hug you farewell. Instead, he stopped midway, his whole body stiff. He jerked his gaze back to your mom, and you realized that she had grabbed the hem of his shirt. She gave it a small tug before letting go. Time's a-wasting, Cove, and I've known you long enough to be aware that you're one to linger. If I don't stop you now, you'll only drag your feet on parting ways more. The two of you can snuggle as much as you want later. We have important shopping to do now. Cove gasped at what he felt was a truly obscene thing to say. His face burned red, but that was ignored by him. He spoke with an unimpressed roll of his eyes. You don't need to literally pull me away from Jimmy. I'm not that clingy. Mom sniggered with a shake of her head. Cove's eyebrows raised over the reaction, and he turned to Ma. She wouldn't meet his eyes as she whistled innocently. Liz smirked ear to ear, and Cove whipped his head towards his dad. Mr. Holden couldn't offer anything more than an apologetic shrug. It was only then that it dawned on Cove that everyone did think that he was that needy. Finally, he dared to face you with wide, pleading eyes. Don't make fun of Cove, who said you were allowed to say things like that. Cove is totally capable of being independent when he wants to be. There's nothing wrong with being attached. It's nice. There's nothing wrong with being attached. It's nice. And you meant it. You very much enjoyed Cove's company and his affectionate nature, but that wasn't exactly a denial of what he was being accused of. Mom's smile grew. Cove couldn't believe that he was being completely outnumbered. His mouth twisted as he struggled to come up with something to say in his defense. Yeah, well, so what? The admission had Liz, your moms, and his dad bursting into laughter. Cove grimaced and walked several steps from the group before stopping. He clearly wanted to move on, so much that he was physically moving away. I'll see you soon. For a moment, you weren't sure if Cove heard you over the noise of the market, but then he nodded. You smiled softly, watching him get over his embarrassment and relax a bit. See you later. See you in a few hours. Take care of yourselves. At that, Mom picked a direction and set out into the market with Mr. Holden and Cove following behind her. Grinning, Ma sent them off with a big wave. Liz gave a daintier goodbye wave herself. Yeah, I guess despite the change in plans, I'm still okay. It wasn't what you'd imagined, but that didn't matter. There was a whole market to explore, and you couldn't wait to find some good stuff. When they were gone, Ma cheerily turned towards you and Liz. She put her hands on her hips. Do you think there'll be any nice ginger around here? We'll have to find out. You nodded in agreement, keen to truly get the trip going. Ma led you both into the busy market. Some time passed browsing. There were only a few stalls you stopped at. You had fun chatting and laughing, pointing out various things to Ma and Liz and vice versa. At one point, Ma stopped suddenly. She put a hand on her belly and gave a half-hearted smile. I think I should have used the bathroom before we left home like the two of you responsibly did. Just need to be? Yes, Liz. I'll have a visit to the ladies' room now. Should Liz and I go on without you? Ma craned forward as she struggled to pinpoint the direction she needed to go. She gently considered your suggestion. Actually, I might need help finding my way. Can you please come, Lizzie? You and your sister had to share a look over that. Why do that of all things? Ma, if anyone should go anywhere on their own, shouldn't it be you? You're the one needing a detour. You're the parent here. Ma giggled, unfazed by the resistance. Liz meanwhile tipped the brow of her hat, watching Ma skeptically. Soon enough, Jamie will have to handle doing these kinds of errands on her own. This makes good practice. What? Ma hooked an arm around Liz and pulled her along. Have fun. We'll find each other again later. Excuse me? They're leaving me alone? I'm just stunned, man. You watched, dumbfounded, as they waded into the crowd. They were out of sight within moments, and what started as a group outing rapidly became you, entirely on your own. I don't really mind. Yeah, Ma's being ridiculous, but I don't mind. You weren't sure what ulterior motives Ma had for pulling this, but that was far down on your priority list at the moment. You were starting to feel happy at the idea of doing things at your own pace. Yeah, I'll just go. Resigned to your fate, you picked up where you left off browsing the stalls. One hooked your attention. Ooh, I'm so hungry now. While most stalls were selling various garden-grown foods, this one had an array of homemade fudge. There were even vegan versions of every option. Yes. Fudge. You sidestepped past a few other people and got yourself right in front of the counter for a better look. There was a wide spread, dozens and dozens of delicately cut squares of decadence. The owner smiled and approached you to explain their shop. The fudge is sold in boxes of 4 pieces. They can be all the same, all different, or any mix you like. Are you looking to buy any today? Ooh, I could get one for Cove. I'll get one for Cove. Looking at the treats made you think of Cove. You grinned, hoping he'd like what you picked out. That's it. Yeah, I could use some fudge. I'm glad you came to the right place then. For Cove, I pick dark chocolate and dark chocolate mint. Can you tell I like dark chocolate? And red velvet and chocolate peanut butter. You couldn't help but try to imagine how Cove might react when you presented this to him. You paid, and there was no stopping the large grin going all across your face. Pivoting on your heels, you wove your way back to the center of the path. You pondered for a moment what you should do now. None of the stalls were catching your eye. What did grab your attention, however, was a head of familiar seafoam hair sticking out above the crowd. You knew instantly it was Cove. He hadn't noticed you yet, but he was walking in your direction. He held a couple bags tightly in his hand. Strangely, you couldn't spot your mom or his dad anywhere. I'm gonna definitely call out to him. Standing firm, you cupped your hands around your mouth for added projection. You took a deep breath. Cove Holden, get your butt over here! He instantly stopped dead in his tracks. Alert, Cove's head snapped up and his eyes searched the crowd until they landed on you. His whole demeanor brightened at the sight. Jamie. He weaved through passers-by awkwardly in an attempt to get through as fast as reasonably possible, nearly stumbling more than once. I'll go over to him. You stepped around a few people to meet Cove partway. It was undeniable that he was shopping by himself. You stared at him confused. Did you ditch your group? Cove crossed his arms defiantly, the bags twisting in front of him. Your mom took my dad and I ended up alone. Why are you by yourself? Ma and Liz abandoned me too. What? I can't believe this happened to both of us. They planned it. They had to. But I don't know why. Are they pranking us? I don't know either. And you meant it. You couldn't fathom why your moms were up to. Cove shook his head, trying to clear his mind. Well, his change in tone caught your attention. You watched his eyes start to twinkle with mischief as his mouth pulled into a cheeky smile. You know, it is technically later, and your mom isn't around this time. You chuckled, knowing exactly what he's implying. That incident was already replaying in your head. I have no idea what he's talking about. What? I can't remember what... Is it a hug or a kiss? I can't remember what he's talking about. Okay. Cove smiled and held his arms out to you. Quickly, you melted into his embrace, enveloping yourself in his warmth. Cove held you until you were ready to let go. I'm glad it's later. Me too. So, His gaze wandered off, as if one of your parents might simply appear if he kept checking, and you could tell he was still processing the situation. He scratched the back of his head, looking sheepish. Do you want to forget about whatever's happening and go shopping together? Definitely. There was a little care in your mind for what your moms had planned. You were ecstatic at the thought of spending the rest of the trip with him. Cove's grin twisted into a conspiratorial one. You both knew that you were going against whatever had really been planned for this outing, but luckily neither of you cared one bit at this point. So where to first? I don't mind going back the way I came if it's new to you. It's not hard to miss stuff even if I've gone past it. What have you gotten? Cove shuffled his bags around and started pulling them open so you could peek inside each one. You recognized the array of things he picked up around the market. Mostly got typical things I can use pretty easily so far. Nothing super exciting. There were a few cucumbers, some lemons, and sweet potatoes, among other things that were wrapped up so you couldn't discern what they were. What Cove bought made sense, but it was far from a complete selection, and glanced around at the nearby stalls. Want to start over there? Cove followed your eyes as you pointed out one of the larger stalls. It was filled with several kinds of staple fruits and vegetables. Yeah, let's go. Once a few people finished paying and moved, you and Cove got yourself directly in front of the shop. There were so many things to pick from. I went shopping this weekend. We need lettuce. And... ooh, spinach. And he already got lemons and cucumbers, so let's get oranges. And peaches. And I'm good. The shop owner put your selection together and handed it to you all in a single bag. Happily, you paid and waited for Cove to make his purchase. Oh, I thought we were just shopping for Cove. If we were shopping for me, I would have got cucumber. Cove grinned, satisfied with his new choices. He had added another bag to his small but growing collection. You nodded. Actually, before moving on and everything, I was wondering if you'd want to hold hands while we're shopping? Oh, yeah. There was no way you could say no to that face. Delighted, you laced your fingers with his without hesitation. I hate holding hands, but we'll do it for you, Cove. Cove squeezed your hand back. With renewed eagerness, your boyfriend nodded his head in the direction you had been going towards. All right. Okay, now let's go. Together, you and Cove wandered the market on the lookout for any stalls that caught your attention. Cove was walking around with a spring in his step, talking about various meal ideas he had in mind. After a while, you had to go greater distances to find something of interest. Several of the stalls were selling the same goods. It was only a matter now of which you wanted to buy from. You continued ambling down the path until Cove stopped suddenly, literally pulling you away from your thoughts. Cove? You followed his eyeline past the crowds. Immediately, you know what grabbed him. Homemade jams and local honey. Ooh, I would love a stall like that too. That stall was glittering with quaint glass jars stacked high, each encasing a gel of varying colors. Cove's eyes were practically sparkling at the sight. His feet automatically began to take him there, likely without being fully aware he had made an unexplained detour. When you got closer, you were surprised there were even more varieties than you thought. There were even different honeys based on what type of pollen the bees used. Cove's focus seemed torn between a bottle of blackberry jam and one of clover honey. Earnestly, do you want some honey? Honey? Yeah, let's tease him. Dumbfounded, Cove nodded in response. His face was burning red. You grinned, way too pleased with your own joke. You thought things over for yourself, too. Orange blossom honey, spring wildflower, honey butter. I like honey butter. Blackberry jam, apricot, plum jam, rhubarb jam, raspberry. Let's get honey butter. Should we get some jam, too? Nah. You paid, and the shop owner started putting together your order. They carefully packed it in a single bag with paper. Thank you very much. Amused, you watched Cove give in and just buy both the clover honey and the blackberry jam. He also went all in, getting spring wildflower honey and plum jam, too. The shop owner thoughtfully wrapped each in brown paper to protect them before putting them away in a bag. He handed the purchase to Cove. Thank you. You both stepped away from the stall. Cove didn't fail to notice the look you'd been giving him since he agonized over his toast toppers. Hey, this doesn't go bad for a long time, so why not stock up? I could have chosen one if I wanted to. Uh-huh. For a moment I thought you were going to buy the whole stall. Cove laughed, but he still tried to shake his head in disapproval. You hoped he enjoyed every bit of what he bought. As you began to stroll, Cove looked up at the sky. He smiled. It was sort of unexpected, considering all of this was technically an errand, and unexpected changes often upset him. But he was happy, and Cove liked doing this kind of normal thing. Me too. I love doing mundane things. You could tell that Cove especially enjoyed doing these kinds of things with you. Aw. Yeah. You weren't going to let what happened put a damper on this outing. You were so domestic. I kind of wonder what... I'm glad you're having a good time. Cove chuckled. His gaze fell to his bags, and he was clearly thinking about all the treats he just bought.
So?
Are you having fun too? Yeah, I really am. It's been a good day. Later, when you spotted a less crowded area, you took a break from browsing. Cove started rummaging through one of his bags just to check on how his goods were doing. A smile grew on his face as he went on to the next. You chuckled, knowing that Cove wouldn't let anything go to waste. There wasn't a single doubt. He was going to eat it all. You held a hand in front of your face as you squinted upwards. The sun had moved quite a bit. You'd been at the market for a good while now. Neither your feet nor your arms were sore right now, and Cove looked to be doing fine too, but that was something that could be coming. There was a price to pay for this much shopping, and it wasn't always just in money. Can you give me a piggyback ride? Oh, want me to carry your bags? 'Cause he has a lot more than I do. Cove stared at you unsure, but you just held a hand out expectantly. 'Cause you bought so much, Cove, and I bought like 2 things, so. You don't have to do that. I bought it, and besides, you're already carrying stuff. Who cares about that? I'm trying to do you a favor here. Okay, you win. Or it's actually kind of a loss you're willing to take. No, it is a win. Thanks, Jamie. Cove bundled up his bags into 2 groups and held them out for you to take. You accepted, but had to temporarily put all the bags down on the ground. He chuckled, watching you shuffle the bags around so each arm wasn't carrying too much.
Thank you.
Thanks for doing this. Really, it's nice of you. No problem. Now I get to show off how strong I am. Standing up straight with the bags, you're all set to get going again. You grinned, happy to do this. And with that, you and Cove continued your trip through the market together. Mom and Mom had both texted you during the trip, though only to say that they hoped you'd found some good stuff and that they'd see you later. There were no answers on where they went or why. You and Cove continued to wind your way through the bustling market, the list of outstanding items steadily shrinking while bags grew heavier. Eventually, Cove realized that he hadn't checked his own phone in a while. The 2 of you came to a stop in the nearest alcove, where you'd be out of the steady stream of people perusing the stalls, and he pulled out his phone. Cove pulled out his phone. You watched his eyes dart over the screen as he read the waiting messages. Not important. I can reply to that later. He mumbled his verdict under his breath. Then Cove's face scrunched up with confusion. Wait, I've got a message from my dad. Listen to this. Cove, I wasn't part of the plan. I didn't know what was going on when I left with Jamie's mom. Where are you? He sent that ages ago. I didn't hear it come in. He sent another one since then. Says he hopes I'm alright and that he's not bothering me. The newest one says everybody's going to the parking lot soon and we can meet up there. He lowered his phone, eyes narrowed. The same conclusion that was settling on you had landed on Cove as well. So it was on purpose. The crowd of people passing by stayed as noisy as ever, a sharp contrast to the silence that had fallen over you and Cove. He was rubbing the screen of his phone against his shirt, wiping away dust and debris. He continued scrubbing the screen long after anything could have remained, the action a poor substitute for pushing away the awkwardness of the moment. You felt alright about it all. I don't really care. Yeah, I don't care what my mom has done. It hadn't changed what you'd done today, only who you'd done it with. They can be really weird, huh? Are you alright? His voice was gentle. I'm beachy. I mean it. That's good. Abandoning us without a warning wasn't really a cool idea, even if they meant well, which they probably did. He looked you straight in the eyes. Not making a big deal out of this is nice. I'm not exactly thrilled personally, so if you do want to complain to me, you can. I don't have anything to complain about. You can be kind of annoying to me. Oh my gosh. I don't have anything to complain about. Nothing? Ever? I don't know. His mouth hung open and then he laughed. Come on, you've got to have plenty of stuff to complain about just from the stunts I've pulled myself, let alone what's happened today. You cracked a grin at that, despite yourself. He could certainly be a troublemaker when he wanted to be, but he could also be so kind. After a moment, he stepped away from you, face turned. Cove closed his eyes and took a deep breath. His brow creased, then furrowed deeper into a scowl, his arms tightly coiling together. So they did do something stupid. I knew it. His voice had taken on an exaggerated quality, but what truly distinguished it from Cove's typical speaking tone was the abundance of rage. This is such a chore. Parents are so dumb. Why do people have to go places with family members anyway? I hate them. You got it instantly. It had been years since the boy with the bowl cut had been in town for the summer, but Cove had never forgotten. To this day, he continued to unleash an impersonation whenever the moment felt right. Sometimes you wondered if the act had grown more exaggerated over the years, or if the kid really was always that ridiculous. You burst out laughing, shook your head, played along. I'll play along. Wow, what is wrong with you? I'm not wrong, actually. If you were as smart as me, you'd know that. Cove gave you a lopsided smile, letting the joke rest for now. Come on, we should probably go meet up with the group. Yeah, You didn't dally any longer, slipping back into the crowd and making your way towards the entrance of the farmer's market. It didn't take long to reach the parking lot. Your parents, Mr. Holden, and Liz were already waiting there, and they waved at you both as you approached. Your own family seemed to be in pretty good moods. In contrast to Mr. Holden, he stared at Cove with an open concern as you got closer. Hey, bud. Hey, Jamie. How you doing? We'd be doing better if we hadn't been abandoned in a farmer's market by our families. You saw your mom's frowning at his response, Maud glancing from Cove to Mom with blinking eyes. Just because Jamie tries to make things a good time no matter what, doesn't mean you can just leave her out of your plans and expect her to go with it every time. Aw, he's standing up for me! Ma hung her head ashamed, and Mom had a hand pressed to her cheek. You could tell that they were quickly regretting their scheme. I'm so sorry, Jamie. Her words were full of emotion. Mom squeezed Ma's arm. We were trying to make the errand more of a trip, less of a chore. Ma nodded. We didn't think you, Cove, and Liz wanted to be stuck trudging around a market with your parents all day. Especially not in the summer. But you're always very thoughtful and don't like to leave your moms behind, so we did ourselves. It was only going to be for the market, not the other stops, I promise. Still, you're right. We could have just told you and let you make your own call. I really am sorry. Neither of us meant to upset you. All gas, no brakes, and we should have known better. Sorry. Ma ditched me too after pulling her urgent potty break stunt, if that helps. I went off to do my own shopping as it seems they planned. Sorry I didn't check back in with you. I wasn't thinking and just tried to blow it off. You quietly took in their stories of what happened. Over to the side, Cove was talking to his dad. Thanks for telling me something was up, though I feel bad for missing the warning when you sent it. It's no trouble, sport. I learned my lesson about making surprise plans. Besides, I've got to register every thought that wanders through his head by you first, right? That sounds about right, yeah. Cove smiled at his dad. Mr. Holden, laughing, clapped Cove on the back. Wow, we're really being outplayed today. You realized you hadn't been the only onlookers to Holden's moment. Your moms were exchanging rueful looks. Liz had her arms crossed over her chest, patiently watching it all unfold. Yes, looks like it. We'd better find some way to catch up. Maybe we can do Jamie's chores for the next week? Mom jabbed Ma on the shoulder. You might be onto something. Jamie, how'd you like the sound of that? They looked at you hopefully. Well, I wasn't even mad. Sounds good to me. Make it 2 weeks. You're gonna have to... I was never mad. That's wonderful. We'll still do better. Come on. And at the very least, we can make sure everyone stays together for the rest of the stops we're making today. You all nodded at the suggestion. We won't let you down. We'll be the best sheepdogs ever, guarding the flock and catching strays. We could at least be shepherds. You chuckled, your mood lifting in spite of the bumpy morning. It was going to be all right. You turned to the entrance for the farmer's market for one final glance, pressing it into your memory under this new light. You thought on what you'd picked up at the market and how you were going to enjoy it later. Something you could only get from local suppliers like this. That was another perk about coming along to the market today. Cove then sidled up next to you, an eager smile on his face. You could tell from his expression that he was up to something. I know this wasn't part of the plan for today, but nothing that happened really was, so... You've been plotting your own scheme? He laughed. Anyway, well, I sort of picked something out with you in mind. You held your hand to your chest, staring at Cove as he explained it further. Since your moms decided we should shop separately, I figured I could use the time to get you something, just as a little surprise. Oh my gosh, great minds think alike, Cove! He reached into one of his bags and retrieved one of the wrapped-up objects. You accepted the unexpected present, and he looked on excitedly as you tore off the paper. It was a glass bottle of a small batch lemonade. You didn't need to taste it to know that it would be nice. It was a boutique product. I love lemonade! I love homemade... Oh, there's this lemonade stand. It's like a little, like, tiny shop that sells the best lemonade in the world. Oh my gosh, I love lemonade. It was heavy in your hands, the container and smart metal cap reaffirming the quality. Even the label, constructed from coarse paper rather than flimsy sheet of plastic, was distinctive. Oh my gosh, and the lemonade that's near my house, it's refillable bottles, so it's like more eco-friendly because they give you a glass bottle and you pay extra for the bottle, but then every time you go back, you don't have to pay extra and you just fill up your own bottle again. It's so great. I love it. You were practically bouncing in anticipation and he smiled sweetly at your reaction. It's not a big deal, but I just thought you might like it. Thank you. You didn't have to... You didn't have to do that. We're a real bear. His eyes began to widen. I got something for you too when you weren't around. There was a burst of laughter, first from your mom, followed by a chorus of chuckles from the other three. You'd forgotten that they were still hanging around. Unfortunately, they hadn't paid you and Cove the same courtesy and had been listening in on your conversation. You weren't even apart for a whole day. And you still used that as a chance to get each other little gifts. Maud clasped her hands together, eyes bright. That's so lovely. A day? It was less than a whole morning. True, I don't even want to think about what happens when you spend real time apart. That's my boy. Aw. You stuck a hand into the bag and pulled out the box of fudge you'd picked up for Cove earlier. You smirked wildly, amused that the others were still watching you. During my time alone, I came across a stall that made me think of you. Fudge! Cove's face lit up, his grin stretching from ear to ear. The laughter that came from the others, who were fully tuned into your little show, didn't appear to reach him. Really? Cove took the box of fudge in one hand and claimed one of your hands with the other. He used the hold he had to lead you closer to him while he rubbed the back of your hand with his thumb, tracing small circles over your skin. Thank you, thank you, thank you. He looked at you with shining eyes. At this rate, it wouldn't just be your little group that knew you'd been treating him. The whole parking lot was going to learn about it. Behind Cove, you could see Mom watching you both with a smile of hilarity. See? This is why he's so attached. You've spoiled him. You shouldn't make fun, Pam. It's clearly mutual. Besides, I don't hear you complaining when I'm spoiling you. Ma pinched Mom's cheek, making her laugh as she battled the hand away. True, true. Liz clapped her hands together with the air of a teacher calling for attention. Since the other adults aren't acting like grown-ups, the rest of us are going to have to pick up the slack. It's time to get back on schedule and continue with the rest of the errands. Playtime is officially over. Ma laughed while Mr. Holden grinned awkwardly. Mom hung her head in an exaggerated display of mock defeat. Kids are tough, though. I can't even call them kids anymore. Liz tut-tutted with amusement at her mother. Cove shrugged, saying a neutral observer, but the small smile on his face revealed that he was enjoying the conclusion. Sorry, that term has expired. You grinned, letting them know that you were at least partly joking, though really you and Cove and Liz could hardly be called kids these days. You were glad that everyone was getting along. With that, your trip to the farmer's market was closed. It was time to move on. There were too many of you for one car, so you and Cove had wound up in Mr. Holden's car on the way over. You figured it made sense to do the same for the next leg of the journey. You sat next to Cove in the back. Immediately after the click of the seatbelt in its lock announced that Cove was safely strapped in, he began to unfold the box of fudge he'd been given. You're gonna eat it now? Uh-huh. He nodded eagerly, not taking his eyes from the container. He lifted the top of it and longingly admired the selection inside. Isn't dark chocolate fudge a real classic? You know it's gonna be good. Minty fudge is perfect for the end of snacking. It's so refreshing. That's peanut butter in there, right? Mm-hmm. It's chocolate with peanut butter mixed. Ooh, that's so good. Red fudge. That's gotta be a red velvet flavor. You're right. Knew it. Delicious. I love red velvet. Once Cove had finished bestowing praise on what you'd picked, he promptly started sampling the selection. He was smiling, licking his lips, and having a grand old time. You could also tell from the way he was nibbling was turning into munching that the box was going to survive the trip to the next stop. You were right. Cove had tried to savor the treats, claiming just one more until there was only one left, and the statement was finally forced to be true. He finished the last one too. He sighed contentedly. Thanks again, Jamie. Those were really great. You're welcome. He set the picked, clean box to the side, then rested a hand on his spoiled tummy. Cove wasn't going to be hungry for a while after that. From there, he sat wordlessly, gaze drifting to the window. You knew Cove well enough to spot the signs of when he was physically present, but mentally elsewhere. The way he would fall quiet, staring without seeing, the long blinks, all of which he was doing right now as he looked at nothing in particular. He licked his fingers absent-mindedly, getting the last of the melted fudge off his hand. Is it too late to ask for a taste? I would have enjoyed a bite too. Yeah, I'm happy he liked it that much. You closed your eyes as you pulled up the resolve to speak. You waggled your eyebrows at him jokingly. So, what were you so lost in thought about? Well, I was just thinking about how nice you are. How nice I am? Yeah. His face grew redder as his hands clenched around the top of his knees. You stared at him, hoping for an explanation, but Cove simply ducked his head. When he next spoke, his voice was barely more than a whisper. I'm lucky I get to be with you. I'm gonna laugh happily, because that's what I just did. He peeked at you from the corner of his eye, still too shy to look at you directly. You smiled at him affectionately, eliciting an equally caring smile from Cove in return. You felt content, secure in your relationship with Cove. Yeah, I want to drink, but I'll drink it now. You twisted off the cap and brought it to your mouth. Even before the first sip reached your lips, the scent tickled your nostrils. You took a swig. It was refreshing, the perfect way to hit the spot after a long morning trawling through the market. Not bad at all. Thanks, Cove. He grinned at you, pleased that his pick had been well received. You're welcome. You spent the rest of the day completing the remaining errands all together as a group. I had enjoyed my brief independence. It might not have come about under ideal circumstances, but it had proved you with an opportunity to spend time making your own choices. You felt that you'd risen to the challenge. Yeah. that was super fun. I actually really enjoyed that one. I will see you next time with talks. Alright, I hope you have a good day, good week, good year, good life. And I'll see you next time. Goodbye.